and welcome to the Behavior Education Connection, the podcast that works to connect the world of behavior analysis and the world of education. We focus on topics important to behavior analysts who work in the public schools and those who support them. Join us and spend time gaining insights and ideas as our host talks with fellow behavior analysts as well as other experts in the field. Hello and welcome to our next episode of the Behavior Education Connection. I'm your host, Dr. Selena Layden, and I am here today with Noel Woolard. Hi, Noel.
Hi, Selena. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for joining me. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. My name is Noel Woolard, and I am a technical assistance associate with the Autism Center for Excellence at VCU. And in that role, I am able to partner with school divisions across the Commonwealth of Virginia to really identify areas where they would like to change their practice in terms of educating students with autism.
Great. And I am happy to have you here today. We're talking about a topic that I find particularly interesting and spend a lot of my time on, and that is professional development. And specifically for today, we're talking about what BCBAs have to do with professional development in schools.
Well, this is a topic that is very interesting to me, Selena. So in my role at ACE, as I mentioned previously, I'm able to partner with school divisions to kind of develop plans for how they hope to support kids with autism. And one of the things that we focus on is professional development. So as a behavior analyst and a former special education teacher, I'm able to really work with them to develop those areas of need and then help them to develop a plan for implementation. And then go ahead when we're finished and really evaluate how effective those professional development opportunities have been. I found that while I was working at ACE and working on professional development and improving practice of teachers, I was also completing a doctorate at VCU. And one of the areas that I really focused on was professional development and what are those critical components that we should include within our professional development practices to really help to ensure that teachers are implementing the things that we have talked about and that we have worked on and that we have trained on, and how to do that and use the behavioral analytic principles that we as behavior analysts do so well.
Well, so I think one of the things that we should start with, behavior analysts have lots of different roles in schools. And I think we're seeing more and more they're part of training efforts in lots of different ways. But I think that's definitely a growing area that they are working in. So starting out, other than just the fact that we're doing it, why is it important for us to talk about professional development practices?
Well, that's a really good question. So there is a lot of money that school divisions are investing in professional development activities and programs. And when I did a quick search on the internet and a lit search, I found that there's like over $18 billion a year that is spent on professional development practices. So that's a lot of money school divisions are kind of spending to support teachers. So we want to make sure that that money is well used. And we also know that behavior analysts are often tasked with the responsibility of creating and also delivering professional development to their teachers. So we want to make sure that if we're going to use their time to do this, that we're using it really, really wisely, and we're making the best use of the behavior analyst time as well as the teacher and administrator's times as well. We also know that it's incredibly important for us to look at ways to retain teachers within the field of special education. And quality professional development is one way that we can actually potentially retain teachers in the field. So teachers who feel that they have more skills and have more expertise in training and more likely to stay in the field of education.
So those are really interesting points. And it's crazy to think that, $18 billion go into this. And you're right, we do want to use our resources wisely because while that is a lot of money, we know that we don't have a lot of money in education to just spend frivolously. So one of the things that I think about is I don't know that everybody thinks about the same thing when we're talking about professional development. And, we're behavior analysts, we like to operationally define things. So, how do we define professional development?
Well, when you take a look at the literature, professional development, there's actually two main models that are referred to. One is kind of that traditional model of professional development, and that's what we probably were very familiar with, 10, 15 years ago. It's professional development that happens outside of the school building. So that would be conferences that you go to, it would be classes that you take out of the building, it would be basically things that happen outside of the school community. And then we have the reform model of professional development. And that's something that is a model that is more sustainable over time. So within that model, you would find more mentoring and coaching and professional learning communities and opportunities for teachers to kind of collaborate amongst themselves, specific to different content areas.
So I think it's interesting that you kind of differentiate these two models, and I think there's certainly value in both, right? So tell me a little bit more about what these look like.
Okay, so I'm going to go like a step further, and let me just kind of talk about how the literature defines professional development or effective professional development. So Guskey, he is one of the lead researchers in the field of professional development, and he actually describes professional development as activities designed to improve the attitudes and skill sets of educators. And then some of his other colleagues, specifically McMurray, further defined professional development as being an essential component of systematic change. And as behavior analysts, we really like systematic change. We like the process that we go through when we are actually trying to change practice, one step at a time. And then some other researchers looked at professional development and its impact on teacher knowledge and also teacher professional attitudes. So I think that's a really important kind of piece to think about when we look at the definition of professional development.
So I think that the important question here is, what do behavior analysts have to do with professional development? What's their role? How can they be helpful?
So I think behavior analysts really bring a unique skill set to the table when it comes to developing professional development activities. So one of the things that I think that we do incredibly well as behavior analysts is that we plan with the end in mind. And that's a term that Guskey uses quite frequently. So we're always thinking about what that end goal is and what the outcomes that we hope to achieve based on our professional development activities. So once we kind of know where we're going, then we can kind of take a step back and work with the school division and the division leaders to really develop a systematic plan that will take us step by step towards achieving those outcomes. So I think that's pretty much the biggest area that behavior analysts can assist school divisions and school personnel in terms of developing professional development activities.
One of the things, and I agree with you, but one of the things I also think about is behavior analysts know a lot about data collection and evaluation and how do we know that what we did is actually effective? Because one of the biggest fallacies I see in educational professional development is that we still use the sit and get model, right? We still have these workshops and people come and they listen and they might feel really good about what they learned, but then we don't know what happens when they go back into their classroom. And I see that as a potential area that behavior analysts could have a lot of impact on.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Behavior analysts who are working in the public school setting, they're in classrooms, they're interacting with teachers and students all the time, and they can be very useful in helping to determine ways to measure progress or growth that the teachers have made in terms of implementing some of those strategies that they've learned in those professional development sessions. So I think that is certainly a way that we can use our behavior analytic principles to help us determine, this professional development activity is really making a difference in teacher implementation and therefore going to really impact our students in terms of their growth.
And, I don't know if you've thought about this or not, Noel, but the other piece that I think a lot about is behavior analysts have, we have very specific skill sets and they're typically pretty highly developed. And a lot of times what I have found in schools is that teachers have a lot of really great strategies, but when those strategies don't work, or when they don't work as well as they want them to, they aren't always able to repair them because they don't always understand the science underneath them. And that's another area that I think behavior analysts could really help support is, reinforcement's great, but when we hear, oh, I tried positive reinforcement and it didn't work, of course, as a behavior analyst, that makes me cringe because, well, clearly you didn't try positive reinforcement and it didn't work. But I've learned through the years, like, they really believe that that's what they're doing. And then it doesn't work. And then they don't know what to do. And so then they just say, well, it didn't work, so I'm not going to do that ever again, which is unfortunate because, of course, this is one example, but we know positive reinforcement is one of our strongest tools that we can use. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but that's the other thing that I think a lot about.
Yeah, most definitely. Actually, as you're talking about that, I was thinking about the fact that for many of us as behavior analysts who are working in the school divisions right now, many of us have been teachers as well. And so we probably have been in those same situations that these teachers have been in, where we tried something and maybe it didn't work, but maybe we didn't fully look at the different ways we could modify that strategy and really individualize it to that specific student and maybe their specific function of behavior. So I think being a behavior analyst as well as being a previous teacher kind of gives me that full perspective, and I can see things in the same way that the teacher may. So I think you're absolutely right with that.
Well, I think this has been a really great conversation, and we are not actually done with this conversation. We're going to have part 2, but we're going to wrap up here for a minute, and then we will, hopefully our viewers will join us on our next episode. But do you have any closing thoughts for right now?
Yes, I do. So what I'd like to say is that as behavior analysts, we really have a unique opportunity to partner with school division leaders and administrators and really find ways to collaborate in order to just help our teachers make the most out of the professional development exercises and activities that they engage in. I think that behavior analysts can really make sure that we are doing things in a very smart way, and that everything that we are doing in terms of professional development is intentional and has a goal attached to it, so that we're always looking at those outcomes that will impact those individuals who are receiving that development, the professional development.
I love that, using our science to then implement the professional development so that they will use the science. So Noel, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
And you're coming back for part 2. So if you're listening, please join us again, like I said, for part 2 with Noel Woolard. Noel, thank you again, and we will catch you in the next episode.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Behavior Education Connection. Join us next time for another great conversation about behavior analysis in the schools. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on an episode. Sending out a special thanks to the Virginia Department of Education for supporting our work. We look forward to connecting with you all again soon.